So I've talked about learning as an emergent process. That doesn't mean there's no role for the teacher. After all, part of what the teacher does is to promote noticing of features in the language and giving students an opportunity to work with those features in a meaningful way. Thus, I think there are lessons also for the teaching of language that can be derived from a complex system's view of language. For one, I think if teachers think iteratively rather than repetitively, their learners will be better off. What I mean by that is not asking students to repeat all the time, but giving students an opportunity to revisit the territory, to come back again and again to a particular topic or a particular way of expressing themselves. So, for example, having students read a passage, but also watch a YouTube video dealing with the same topic, I think is an excellent way to give students an opportunity to grapple with the language more than once without repeating it, without imitating it, but rather engaging with it meaningfully. Another thing I think we can do and should do is to help learners adapt their language resources, to put them to their own purposes. You know, what goes on in the classroom is only part of it, isn't it? We want students to take what they learn and use it for their own purposes, and that involves a process of adaptation. We all do it. We all adapt what we know to a changing situation and the changing demands of that situation. But perhaps we ought to do it in a way that's more consistent, that is, teach adaptation. Teach our students to take their language resources and mold them and adapt them to the changing situation. One way of doing that is to build on Earl Stevick's idea of technemes, taking a technique and altering the conditions by which it's accomplished. So, for example, the 4-3-2 technique is a common one, asking students to pair up and give a story of their own choice, tell a story of their own choice to their partners. Find a second person and tell their story, say the first story for 4 minutes, find a second partner and tell that same story in 3 minutes, and a third partner and tell that same story in 2 minutes, and they exchange stories. The 4-3-2 technique, I think, is a way of teaching students to adapt their language resources, to change them as the time diminishes. That's another example. And a third implication is assessing our students' learning in a self-referential manner. That means not measuring what students are learning against some idealized native speaker yardstick, but rather looking at what they are doing as compared to what they could do over time, seeing each student as an individual. Now, that's not so difficult, that's not so easy. It makes it more difficult for teachers to manage. But on the other hand, it seems to me it improves over the idea of a static competence to which learners must conform. Learning a language is not about conformity to uniformity.